Alright, so I've made a bunch of game reviews on this channel, but I've never really covered anything truly bad. So today I want to talk about some of the lesser games in my collection. These will range a fair bit on the shittiness scale, but you can guarantee all of these games suck.
Even now in heaven there were angels carrying savage weapons.
First on the list is Made Man for the PlayStation 2. Now, as we know, the PS2 has some of the best games ever made, as well as some of the worst games ever made, and somewhere in the middle, you've got Made Man, released in 2006 by Silverback Studios. Oh, you know it's bad when you can't click on their name on the Wikipedia page. Anyway, first I'll give a little bit of context as to how I ended up with this game. Every year around my birthday or Christmas, kid me would stroll into the second-hand section at the local game store. Yeah, that one called Game that doesn't operate in Australia anymore. And my uncle would say, go and pick out a few games as your present. This is how I ended up with some absolute bangers. We're talking games like Hitman Contracts, Resident Evil 4, age rating be damned, because we know as long as it's only extreme violence and not sexual content, it's perfectly fine for a child to be playing. I'm sure there's more than a few out there that will be able to relate to that incredible logic by our elders, and being the youngest of three, I truly got the laziest parenting in that respect. But anyway, among my list of games showing my incredible taste, there was a slight blemish. Now, despite not being well versed in crime movies, I was caught by the cover thinking this could be some cool, edgy gangster thing, and well, I certainly got something trying to be that. The game follows the story of some guy named Joey. I tell you what happens, but I've never actually finished this game. I don't think I've even played it since around the time I bought it back in the day, and I only really remember the shitty Vietnam level. This game is trying so hard to be cool, and the game case really wants you to know it, with such quotes as, "Should give Don Corleone a run for his money," or, "Made Man is the game equivalent of Pulp Fiction." How much did they pay for that line in official PlayStation 2 magazine? Now, the pre-rendered scenes are dated and rather disappointing for 2006, but then we get slapped with the in-engine graphics that look about 5 years out of date. I mean, the mouths don't even move, which by this point should be pretty unacceptable. I was thinking about a game like Headhunter on the Dreamcast from 2001 and how much better that game looks.
Ain't that your brothers messing with that truck?
That's my goddamn
Okay,
truck.
folks, everyone stay in your seats and no one gets hurt. And don't you go getting any ideas either, partner. I got
That
you
thing
dead
down,
right.
Benny.
For once, this ain't about you, Dory.
No
Shut
son
the
of a
fuck
bitch
up.
threatens me or my customers.
Shit, I would argue that Headhunter controls better than this game and manages it with a single stick. At least that game feels well designed for the controller, whereas here it's all just clunky and crap. The cover system is rubbish, the aiming is okay at best, and the combat overall is kinda like Max Payne, but worse. You know, another game from 2001 that is also far better than this piece of shit. This even has its own shitter version of slow-mo that doesn't feel fun to use at all, so I just didn't bother. It's actually really impressive how this game manages to feel so dated, but then at the same time be significantly worse than the older games that it should be able to beat in at least basic parts of its design. It seems like they were too busy trying to tell this gangster story that no one gives a shit about, and they're doing a shit job of it with boring characters and jarring voiceovers randomly scattered throughout levels.
The way out of the tunnels was blocked by a pile of fucking rubble. I needed to find a way to clear the exit, so I headed back into the darkness.
I could have had a bit of fun with it if it was at least funny, you know, like a Rogue Warrior situation where the voiceover by Mickey Rourke is more memorable than anything to do with the actual game itself. What we're instead left with is a wannabe hard-edge gangster game that's trying to copy elements from a bunch of different games and movies while managing to fall flat on its face in every single aspect. There's no redeeming qualities here, don't even bother. Hidden and Dangerous, released for the PC in 1999, Dreamcast in 2000, and PS1 in 2001? Alright. Anyway, I picked up the Dreamcast version fairly cheap a while back as a bit of a curiosity piece, as I'm always eager to try a shooter on the system. There's not a whole lot of first-person shooters on the console as we know, but this is a squad-based action game set during World War II. There is nothing else like this on the system, and I thought surely being a PC game, porting this over to the Dreamcast would be simple enough and I'll have a relatively good time with this. Oh, how wrong I was. I looked at the reviews before buying, and it seemed like a pretty average game at best, but I was willing to persist, so I spent, I want to say $30 and sat down ready for a perfectly okay experience, and at first it felt like that's what I was going to get. The game sets itself up well enough. I mean, it presents the levels in a simple manner, there's nothing complicated going on here with the plot, this is just World War II missions. I even like how it has a squad select screen, which will give you a range of different blokes that will carry different weapons and items. If you're like me and you can't be bothered doing a detailed setup, you can just let the game do it for you. Neat stuff. Once we've got our team of ultimate badasses set up, we're thrust into one of the ugliest looking games I've ever seen on the system. This game truly does look undercooked, like it was designed as an isometric real-time strategy game but changed to a third and first person shooter, so now you zoomed in on all those ugly graphics that would have been a bit better from a distance. I can look past that if the gameplay is fine, but the clunky controls take a fair bit of getting used to. The controller isn't as bad as you'd think, but the game does require button combos for certain things. Problem is, switching to a mouse and keyboard, while overall better, still isn't great. This game is incredibly clunky, and the neat ideas are completely ruined by that. The ability to switch from third to first person is great. I love it when games let you do that, but it's a pain in the ass when neither has much of an advantage over the other when the controls just suck overall. Something that is kind of neat though is the map screen, where you can input commands for anyone in the squad. This makes moving around interesting, but keep in mind your dudes can die very, very quickly.
England!
You'll get a grip on it all in this first level and you'll think, oh, this will be fine. The game is pretty clunky, but once I get used to the mechanics, I'll be able to enjoy myself because at least the game runs pretty well. Oh, how wrong you are, Mr. Unsuspecting Victim. You step outside in the second level and the game immediately shows its true colors. Not only is this game super ugly and clunky as fuck, it completes the holy trinity by running like absolute shit. I don't know how they did it. It's optimized so poorly, but it barely has to render anything in. There's fuck all going on in these levels. This is such a disappointment. This game should have been awesome, but we're left with this broken, half-baked rubbish that serves only to disappoint. But you want to know the worst part? This sticker on the game case. 5 out of fucking 5. Who paid you, computer and video games? Who paid you to lie to the people like that? Nobody deserves this. You should be ashamed. Keeping up with the World War II theme, we've got Call of Duty World at War. Final Fronts. Alright, so while I was often getting games from the second-hand section at Game like I mentioned, occasionally I was Mr. Moneybags and I could go buy a brand new game. This normally happened later on when I was a bit older and had an Xbox 360, so I was buying games like AVP, Wolfenstein, New Vegas, cool shit like that. Well, in the days before I had a 360, I was stuck having to get whatever I could on the PS2, and I had rather limited access to the internet back then, so if I wanted to know about a game, I had to either read about it in a magazine or play whatever my friends had. Well, I'm sure you can guess, when Call of Duty World at War came out in 2008, it was a huge deal, and all my friends with a 360 had this game. Now, I haven't played a Call of Duty game in years, it all just seems like slop to me now, but you better believe that when this game came out, it fucking rocked. Hours upon hours were spent at a friend's house playing this game. The campaign was great, the online was super fun, and let's not forget Nazi zombies. How fucking cool was that? Of course I'd have to go home, and now I have this void to fill. Eventually I end up in a Harvey Norman. Do they even sell games anymore? Huh, there you go. Anyway, they had Call of Duty World at War on the PS2, and it's called Final Fronts for some reason. Maybe I'll grab that. Sure, it'll be cut back, and things might be missing, but it should be fun. How bad could it be? Well, not only is this very stripped back from the game on the next-gen system, it's a completely different game entirely. It follows a completely different Today in World War II campaign with entirely new levels. Remember that cool sniper level with the Russian dude? Yeah, that's gone. We've got what's-his-face here instead.
Miller! Where is your weapon, Marine? Get over to that table and pick up a rifle, Miller. Double time!
Really, it's probably best that it just did its own thing given the limitations of the hardware, but in the end, aside from this being an obvious cash grab made to desperately squeeze some extra money out of the PS2, I'm left wondering why this game even exists. You start off the game with a tutorial, and this gives you a pretty good look at the quality of the graphics we're dealing with here. For such a late PS2 game, they're a bit bloody bland. I mean, for 2008, I reckon we could have gotten a bit better. This game does try to do a fair bit to set the atmosphere at least, with a lot of smoke and explosions to set the mood, but the execution of it all makes it feel like one big fat budget title. Pretty quickly, this game that could have been decent starts falling apart. The most glaring issue being that this game feels rather unstable pretty much anytime anything is going on. It's not full on broken, but the game is constantly stuttering. Performance is very much not one of the strong points here. Maybe this could have been fixed with some proper optimization, but the game constantly stutters between areas. I'm not bothered by a bit of frame dropping here and there, but here it just feels like they were too lazy to get the game working at a proper level. And even if all that was fixed, it would still fall apart with the actual gameplay, which ends up being boring, sluggish, and poorly designed. Nothing feels satisfying here, and the squad you're running around with seemingly want you dead just as much as the Japanese soldiers shooting at you. They love pushing you out of cover, so fuck them. Oh, and this game really tones back the gore that we got in the actual game. It's rather jarring, really. There's no blood at all in a fucking war game from 2008. I mean, what the fuck were they thinking? It's not like they couldn't pull it off. Were they just trying to broaden the audience by making it rated M? Probably, but I'll leave it down to them being too lazy to make this game anything more than a shameless cash-in. This isn't even the worst offense though. Oh no. This game doesn't even have zombies, the thing that World at War is probably most well known for these days. It was the first game to do it, and at least something like that would have been pretty cool on the PS2, but fuck it, we just want a shit game to push out the door, who cares if it's any good? Fuck this game. Get ready for some cutting-edge graphics with this one. It's Cyberia, a PC game from 1994 that was later released on the PlayStation, 3DO, Saturn, and even the FM Towns. All the console ports are probably going to be the same, but here we of course have the Saturn version. I picked up this game in North America. I was travelling around British Columbia, then crossed the border down through Washington, and eventually ended up as far as Portland, so you can imagine there are a lot of game stores to check out along the way. And I mean a lot of game stores. The retro market in the US is huge. And expensive. Side tangent here, why the fuck are Resident Evil and Power Slaves so bloody expensive in America? I couldn't believe it. I thought they'd be dearer here. But nah. Power Slave is especially bad. It's like several times the price of Exhumed. For the same game. Totally caught me off guard. Anyway, once I regained my cool after seeing such prices, I spotted a game I'd heard of before but never actually checked out. Cyberia. A game using pre-rendered visuals that are sure to have a lot of charm. Now, this is a bit of a weird one because this game sucks, sure, but going against the title of this video, I kinda recommend this game. Not because it's secretly good or surprisingly decent despite the jank. No, I recommend playing this game for just a couple of hours because it is so unintentionally hilarious that it's worth the shittiness. At least for those couple of hours, because it will eventually wear you down and just become annoying. This video won't do it justice either. You have to play this game and really soak in how bad and dated this experience is. I mean, I don't think I've ever laughed this much playing a game.
You take the gun on the right. No, the right!
You do have to persist a bit though, because there are some really long-winded turret sections. There's one early on that just keeps going and going, but the cutscenes and the areas where you're just wandering around, that's where the good shit is. This is a game that is so silly but is trying to be so serious, it strikes that perfect balance of bad. But as soon as the action hits in, the rather generous checkpoint system creates this game of trial and error that encourages fucking around. I mean, this game really does suck, but it had me laughing at how purely shit it is. The gameplay is on a strict path, you just point which one you want your character to go. Occasionally you'll run into some combat, or a puzzle, and each death will feel just as cheap as the last. Long plays of the game seem to clock in under an hour and a half, but when I first jumped into the game, I want to say I played it for a good 2 or 3 hours and called it quits around this shootout scene. After laughing my ass off, this is where the game finally wore me down, and it went from funny to just kind of fucked up. But that initial laughter is why I recommend this horrible, horrible game. Up until the gimmick of that game over screen showing up in the funniest moments wears off. Will it be the 15th time? The 100th time? I don't know, but everything up until that point is worth it. I'm sure one of the 10 people who watch this video will be like, hey, I played that game back in the day and I loved it, and I don't want to take that away from them. But 30 years later, this is game design so outdated, it's hard to ever see how this could have ever actually been a good gaming experience. Last on the list here, we've got Spirit of Speed, 1937. Released on the Dreamcast and PC, this old school racer was published by the one and only LJN, which I'm sure inspired confidence in many a shopper back in the day. Now, thankfully I'm not one of those shoppers who would have spent my hard-earned money on rubbish like this game, only to take it home and realise it's a pile of fucking shit. No, I was far more clever buying AAA experiences like fucking Terminator Salvation. Yeah, I don't own that one anymore, but I'll never let myself live that one down. Anyway, I got this game in a pile when I bought my console, which included Sonic Adventure, House of the Dead 2, Virtua Fighter 3, the good stuff, so it didn't matter that this one was going to be a stinker. But that LJN logo makes one rather curious. This is a company known for publishing some of the games of all time. This is surely going to be one of them, so I had to dive in. It seemed like the game was warning me straight off the bat though, giving me plenty of time to turn back at the start menu, because when you hit that start button, this is genuinely how long I had to wait to get to the fucking main screen. Yeah, I'd love to hear the excuse for that, but what's even funnier is that it takes significantly less time to load in an actual race. I'm talking a good 20 seconds less to load in the actual fucking gameplay. It still takes 20 seconds, but it's at least twice as good. Surely there's just a lot going on, you know, sometimes games need a lot of time to load in all those details. No, the game looks like fucking shit. I mean, that menu screen was ugly enough, but after the big flashing warning signs this game gave off, I'm still disappointed by what they dished up. Not only does this manage to look like some half-finished crap, the gameplay also has absolutely no redeemable qualities. These cars are all slow to take off, and the slightest fuck-up can immediately slow you down and make you have to take off again at a snail's pace. Corners, even slight ones, are shit to take, and as soon as the AI gets a bit of a lead going, the race is basically over. I was fighting for 4th in this last race because I fucked up a good spot in lap 1. Not only that, but the track went on forever, which is not good when your game is slow. To top it off, this game's performance is impressively bad. I can't believe they would ship a racing game that is this genuinely terrible. You take a corner and the frame rate drops, like, who the fuck let this out the door? There's not even any music during the races. You've got it in the menus, and then suddenly you get to the race, and it's just shitty car sounds. I don't know what the fuck they were thinking there. This is the perfect game to end LJN's reign of terror. The final game they published. It's the biggest fuck you to everyone, to anyone who would dare spend money on a product they released. I'm impressed I managed to finish a race in this game. It was truly exhausting to play. Well, that was terrible. I certainly had more fun writing about these games than I did actually playing them, but hey, I hope you enjoyed it. Join me next time where I do something. I don't know, I haven't figured it out yet. Bye.